Hi, welcome to the IPM interview special session. Those of you who have already got the IIM Rohtak calls, the interview is obviously on. For IIM Indore, the scores have come in. Still, the cutoffs have not yet been announced. So therefore, some of you are still thinking whether you will, get the most coveted interview call for IIM Indore or not. Whatever it may be, if I think you have about 200 plus score, I think you can just go ahead and start preparing. And if you already have an IIM Rohtak interview or expecting an IIM Ranchi interview, I think you should be in this session. So my name is ARKS, and I'm going to take in the next 30 minutes take you through what are the kind of questions that you expect in a IPM interview, any interview that kind of gets you to a management school like this. But before I go into what happens in an interview, IIM Indore especially gives you one very important question, and they wish that you write this. It's almost like a SOP, the statement of purpose of why on earth are you doing IPM or the 5-year integrated program in management right after your 12th. Why are you not considering something else? What has been your background because of which you are thinking of it? And that is what I'm going to talk up the first part of this session before I go to the actual interviews itself. So, the question you will normally find is this: why do you wish to go in for a management education through a 5-year integrated program in management, and what are your career plans? Now, why is this question important? A lot of students probably can clear their cutoffs, but they are not sure why they want to do it. Obviously, the parents would have suggested it. Many a time, the uncles and the aunts and the parents of the world keep giving this advice saying that this is good, that is good, not really figuring out what the student is interested in. That is what you are really, really interested in. The institute that I'm talking about, the IIM, they don't want to take anybody and everybody. They are looking at, say, hey, I want to take you, provided you have some kind of a clarity. You don't have to have excellent clarity. It's almost impossible to have excellent clarity about, hey, what will you become 5 years down the line, or 20 years down the line, or 30 years down the line. I still don't know what I'll do next 2 years from today. But I know one thing for sure, that I will be doing something like this, helping students on a regular basis. Now, to get to there, I had to finish my engineering. I had to do my MBA. I had to work in a automobile company for 3.5 years. Then I figured out, oh boss, I wanted to get into education. That's like what, 7-8 years after I finished my 12th class. So asking a student who has just finished his 12th, with all the kinds of corona problems that we had over the last 2 years, I think it is very, very uh, it's unfair, it's an injustice, you might think, but no, but it's fair for everybody else too. The question is asked for or to everybody, and that is the reason why, my friends, today you better start preparing for this, because this question will come in the interview also, whether you are Rayam, Rohtak, or Ranchi, or of course Indore. But it's better that you make a note of what you will say. So I'm going to give you the points that you can think of in 3 different ways. The first point, or the first way in which you can address this question, is, hey, why do you want to do a management education? Then, okay, obviously, can you just look at all the three? Yeah, but just go back. So the focus points on this will be, why management education you want to get into. I want to look at all the three things at the same time. Why not engineering? Why not a musician's career? Why not a medical career? Why not a chartered accountant's career? Why not a YouTuber's career, for that matter? Why not something else? And why management education? What makes you feel management education is the right thing for you? The second thing is, okay, management education. Now, please understand this: management education does not necessarily mean that you need to do it after 12th. You could have done a degree and then do an MBA. For example, I have done my MBA after my engineering. I have done from IIM Calcutta, but after 4 years of engineering. Why are you thinking of IPM, which is a 5-year integrated program? Are you sure of why you want to spend the next 5 years in? That's the next question. And the third question is, fair enough, you are good in management, or that's what you want to take up. Second, I know it appears that you have done some kind of a background search on IPM or the integrated program in management. Now you have to be also clear, if you do these two, what will your career be? How will your career be? What area of your career you want to get to. It could be that, for example, your parents are businessmen themselves, your dad is a businessman or mom is a businessman, and you want to figure it out that you want to join their business. So clearly a management education is probably right for you. And an IPM, 5 years, you have a very very focused approach to what you want to do. It's a good idea. But what if your parents are not in that area? Your parent is a he or she might say that this is the right thing for you. What makes it clear that uh, that you have to go into that? And once again, if you don't mind, I will close this. uh, Aditi, just quickly confirm whether it's still clear, you are able to hear. One quick understanding. So, or you can say it on YouTube also, guys, if you're not able to hear me clearly, so that I'll continue with the session. Yeah. The second thing, therefore, is career goals. See what kind of a career plans. And it's impossible for you to realize that, okay, next 30, 40 years of your life, what you will do. But if only 150 seats are there, of which 75 seats, thanks, Kushi. Thanks, Aditi. If there are only 75 seats for the general category and other categories put together, and there are some 300 people waiting in their wings to get into an IPM or an IIM Indore, then I would like, if I am IIM Indore, I would like to take the person who has the most clarity in his or her career as such. I'm not saying the others will not get, but this is the requirement we have. If you know that this is the requirement, one of the ways to look at it is, how do I solve this issue? Now that's where we go to the next part of it, and saying um, there are three approaches that I'm going to talk about. How do you go about? The first one, the first approach, if I can talk about, is something like this. The flow could be, the way you will go about and explain it would be that you will want to talk about your story as such, not even a weakness, actually, mostly your strengths. You talk about your story. From that story comes why your management education, and from that my management education, why IPM, and then your career plans. This could be the flow that you can take up. Or the flow two could be something like this. You can start saying that there's nothing like a story. You talk about who you are, give your background, what's your parents' background, what are your this thing. We'll talk about this a little more in detail in one of the slides that I'm going to give you. But then get into why management, long-term career plan. And therefore, if you want to do management, there is a long-term career plan. How would an IIM Indore's IPM program, an IIM Rohtak's IPM program, or an IIM Ranchi's Rohtak, or whichever program that you are applying, will that help? That could be your focus two, or the flow two, as I call it. And the third flow would be something slightly different. You talk about your background, talk about why management, why IIM, and then get into long-term career and how IPM will achieve it. So there is no right or wrong way in any of these things. There is absolutely no correct way in any of these things. It's about the way you express in an interview. Please note one thing. Lots of people ask this question, sir, what is the most important thing in an interview? And in an interview, it is not only the answers that you give. If they ask you, who is the Vice President of India? Vice President of India, Venkaya Naidu. You might say that. That's okay. Fine. You can look at here, look there, look here, everywhere, and come back with an answer. You will see, and when you come out of an interview, you will say that, hey, I gave a right answer. But the fact is, that's not the way looking at it. So, for example, the same question, who is the Vice President of India? And let's say you don't remember. So, give me a moment. I will think about it. I obviously have it on the tip of my tongue. Sir, I think it is Venkaya Naidu. In the meantime, you are kind of, talking about yourself, thinking aloud, and coming out with an answer instead of looking at the ceiling and at the floor. What it shows and what is the difference is the way you are coming across as an individual. You are going to an IIM, you're going to one of the best places in the country. So what they expect from you is that you're also as confident as they expect you to be. You are confident that what you are doing is the right thing. Why do you want to do a management? There are lots of answers for that. But how you say it is going to be more important than just what you say. Of course, what you say is important. But apart from what you say, it is the how you say it is going to make a huge difference. For example, this particular session that I'm taking, I I'm not saying I'm the best or the session I'm doing it in a there cannot be any other way in which it can be bettered. But let's think about it for a moment. For the same question, I'll say, okay, there are three ways, there are three flows to take up this question. Why do you want to do management through 5-year program? Flow one is you can start with a your story, then talk about why management, then why APM, and then you talk about career plans. Flow two would be introduction plus background, why management, long-term career plans that you start, and then you talk about why PM. And there is also a third flow, which is background. You talk about why management, long term, why IPM, long term, and how IPM will like. See, I mean, saying you can say this, but you know what? Already people are not interested. And then if I make it so disinterested, I mean, so uninteresting, you will run away from this session. Already nobody likes these sessions. Why are you wasting time? But then you want that there is some kind of an attention gathering that you need to create to make sure that people listen to you. And the same case is with the interviewers also. Why should they listen to you if you're not even very engaging? I think that, to my mind, is as important as anything else can be. Okay, so let's look at what an interview does. Once you have done with this form and ready with this form, let's look at the interview basics. There are 6 things that will happen. The first one is we'll figure it out. What are the base things that we'll learn about? One is the external environment. What exactly happens in this? Second is the first 2 minutes in the real interview. Then we'll talk about what parameters, what is it that the interviewer is really looking for in you? What are the parameters? Fourth one will be, okay, now I know the parameters, I know this. Then you need to look at, what kind of questions finally there somebody will ask. So we'll talk about the commonly asked questions. And then we look at one very, very important question while it will come as a part of your interview. I am going to take in this particular session a small part of the session as a what should I say for a question like tell me about yourself. Harshvardhan, I will answer that question also. And lastly, we'll take up a couple of FAQs, the frequently asked questions, including the dress code and other behaviors. Let's look at the first external environment. See, when you talk about the external environment, very, very quickly we'll look at it. You have already written an IPMAT exam. You've already written an IPMAT exam. So why are they asking you to look at interviews? Your exam is a reflection of your aptitude, but it is not a reflection of your attitude. What really who you are? You are a number. You are a registration number in front of them with some marks, 10th class marks, 12th class marks, and some IPMAT marks. That's not going to be enough for me to take a decision, especially if it's a management course. And that is the reason why interviews will get, the interviewer or the institute which is interviewing, the professors would want to know you, the person who you are, better. The second thing is, when you talk, Aditi, if you can go to the next one. So the second one, which is important in the external environment, is a panel. The panel will be about 2 or 3 people, very simple. And the type of interviews that you'll find them are 2 types of interviews generally. Either a non-stress interview or sometimes a stress interview. Now you might think, sir, what is this stress interview? I would rather not take a stress interview. I would rather be a non-stress interview. I would rather that it be a non-stress interview. Now this is important for you to understand for a moment. When you talk about a non-stress interviews, it's like asking very nicely, okay, tell me about yourself. You will tell whatever. Tell me, why do you want to do a management? You will tell something about, tell me Newton's laws of motion. They will ask you that also. And you will tell some answer for that. What are Newton's laws of motion? Whether you are telling it right or not, it doesn't matter. And they will say, acha, acha. Okay, okay, okay. You know, they keep giving you these kind of cues when you are answering. At the end of the interview, in a non-stress interview, it's going to be virtually impossible to figure out whether you have really done a very good job or a very bad job, because in most of these cases they keep on nodding their head, unless of course they are going to, unless it's a stress interview. In general, when it's a stress interview, they kind of put such a kind of pressure on you. Okay, the vice president of India. Oh, you don't even know the vice president of India. You finish your 12th class. Who is your teacher who taught you? Let's say you are a history student or a political science student. They put so much of pressure on you. But when they put such kind of a pressure on you, and if you are able to deal with that properly, you are absolutely going to be winning that game. So I'm not saying this is good or that is bad. Expect that there will be both types of interviews. If they are putting too much of pressure on you, please understand one simple thing. They did not know who you are before, right? They did not know who you are before. You were a number. Now they are seeing you for the first time. They have no love lost for you, nor they have anything enmity against you. They should not be doing a stress interview. But means if they are doing it, that means they are doing it on purpose. You need to be clear and aware of this. That's what you should do. And the last question on external environment is, hey, what should I do in the first 15 minutes? I'm sorry, what is the duration of the interview? And typically, the duration of the interview will not be more than 15 to 20 minutes as such. The second thing that we will talk about, apart from the external environment, is the first 2 minutes. First 2 minutes, including the dress code, Harshvardhan Jadhav, I'll talk about it. Let's look at the few things that are important in the very first minute that you do. There is something called a first impression that you get. Okay, before I go into the first impression, etc. kind of things, if it is a physical interview, there's no clarity there. If it's a physical interview, then it's a different issue. But if it's a Zoom interview, make sure, for example, there's a light here. The lighting has to fall onto you. And look at what I have done. I have made sure that on both sides, there is a curtain, and I am in a kind of a box. You make sure that it's a kind of a box. You sit straight. My colleague keeps telling me that I should sit straight, for example, when I am taking in a Zoom interview or a Zoom session. That's important. Very, very important. So if it's not a Zoom interview, no problems with it. Even then, look at the way you need to sit straight. I'm talking about Ranchi, Rohtak. Each one of them are going to take a decision. Most probably it will be a personal, direct interview. If it is not, just in case, I'm telling you that make sure that the lighting of the room is there. And Aditi, next one, we can look at it. Aditi, can you just go to the issues with the PPT, it looks like. Okay, thanks. So some issues with the PPT, don't worry about it. Now the second thing, okay. You'll have to go back to the presentation mode, please. Thanks. Okay. So as far as the dress code is concerned, let me answer these one by one. Let all of them be there so that you can see it on the screen and take up one by one. Let's talk about the dress code. Like somebody has asked, you have to be in formal dress. If you are a boy, I am saying please make sure that you are also have a blazer and definitely a tie. Even if you are if you're a girl also, if you can go in a formal dress, please understand you are going for a MBA, BBA, MBA, or a BA, MBA integrated program, and hence you are expected to be in a completely professional environment. So shoes, black, dark pant and a light shirt, or the reverse is fine, but ideally a dark pant and a light shirt, not very jazzy colors. definitely a tie, and if you can, definitely wear a blazer, if not a coat, if not a suit. uh, for a woman, once again, business formals, if you can wear, perfectly fine. If you can't wear for whatever reasons in the world, definitely wear a smart
I'm so sorry, guys. Can you hear me now? लाइट चली गई, थोड़ा सा पावर कट है. Extremely sorry about that for a moment. But Aditi, can you confirm that I'm audible? Some quick issue, I think, at this place. Right. Thank you, guys. Sorry. So, dress code, please make sure that you are in absolutely a formal dress. Then if it's a Zoom interview, whichever is a Zoom interview, make sure that you are in a position like this. Or if it's actually a real interview, you will have a door, you will have to knock on the door, ask for your permission, as if, okay, may I come in, sir, or a lady, whoever it is. You need to be able to then only go inside. Don't just barge into a room if it's an offline interview. Other thing, if there is a lady and a gent in an interview room, if there is a lady and a gent in an interview room, then you please make sure, then you please make sure that you first wish the lady and then the gent. It doesn't matter whether the man in front of you is the director himself. If there is a lady in the room, you always first wish the lady and the gentleman next. The third thing that I've already told you already is the sitting posture. Make sure that your posture, the way you sit, is absolutely in a right manner. You know, one of the things that I'll tell you is that if you are sitting, of course, I can't show it to you properly. Make sure that you sit at the absolute, you make sure that your base is hitting the end of the chair rather than sitting like this. You can't sit in front. You always make sure that you go back so that automatically there will be some kind of a straight sitting posture that can come up. Body language, now you can see that when you're talking, whether you are in a physical interview or an online interview, make sure that your body is like this, and you can use your hands to talk. You can always use your hands to talk, in that sense of the word. When you are saying that, there's a lot of animation that can be done. Your eyes should talk, your hands can talk. Of course, don't do so much of dance there, but it can always be done in a very subtle but very very powerful manner. Last couple of things is language to be used in the interview. The language absolutely has to be English. Even if the interviewer asking in Hindi, you are expected to speak only in English, because it's a formal interview and they would have said that so many times. And make sure that your language is always English, unless you're saying that, hey, you're a poet, and you say some in one of your extracurricular activities that you are a poet or a poetess, and they ask you, okay, why don't you recite a poem or a poem of your choice. Then you can think about saying that, okay, sir, there's a Hindi poem or a Sanskrit poem or a Telugu poem or whatever else, and then speak about it. Last but not the least, in the first 2 minutes, the conductance is absolutely essential. Make sure that you are absolutely
कभी कभी ऐसा होता है. I'm so sorry about it, guys. It's like a crazy. I am back, by the way, Aditi. By the time you put in the sentence itself, uh, despite all the advances that we make in everything, despite having a UPS, despite having everything else, it's there will be some kind of a problem. Now, look at this. I would like to use this as an experience or as an example of how you can conduct yourself in the interview itself. Let's say there will be some question which will be like absolutely, uh, a bouncer kind of things for you. Like, for example, what happened? There's nothing much I can do about it. I know that I don't know what to do about it. I have been off the air for the last 3 4 minutes, and some of you have left. That's fine. But what do you do when you come back? Let's say you have not been able to answer 2 3 questions continuously. What can I do? Nothing. But the fourth question that comes to you, and if you know the answer, that is what you need to be. That answer is what you need to be giving in the same kind of enthusiasm as probably what you started off your entire interview with. So that's what I would say. The conduct has to be absolutely formal. Don't use any, like language I said, no, don't use any kind of any other language. And one important thing about interviews is they may provoke you. The interviewers might provoke you. Your job is not to get provoked. That's what you need to please understand that. So after the first 2 minutes, let's look at the parameters that they ask in the interview. So let's quickly take you through the parameters on which the assessment is done as far as your interview is concerned. By the way, if it's an IIM Indore, 35% 35% of your chances is still with you. Only the 65% chances are done. 65% chances are for your the aptitude test that you have written, the 80 that you have written. 35% is a huge amount. In fact, I was just calculating something very interesting, that even if somebody got 240 marks out of 360, that's 66%. Depending on, of course, what are the scores in the 3 sections. Out of the 65 marks, somebody might end up with only about 33 34 marks. Out of the, if you get 240 out of 360, 360 was the paper for IPMAT Indore paper especially. Even if you have got 240 or more, your score out of the 65 marks, 65% of the marks, will be as low as 33 34. You will, of course, get a call. But 35% of your score is on your personal interview. In other words, my friends, the personal interview marks are extremely important, and therefore what you do in that 15 20 minutes are going to be far more important than whatever you have already done, assuming, of course, you are getting into an interview. Even if you get 300 out of 360, your score will be still 40. The difference will be only 7 marks. For a guy who got 240, for or a person who got 300, the difference will be only 7 marks out of the 65 marks. Out of the 65 marks. And that is what I'm trying to say, which is the reason why these 35% marks which are there for interview are very, very important. The assessment, therefore, what you need to prepare for, whatever time you have for the interviews, these are the things that you need to prepare for. First one is, of course, the level of knowledge of what you have already done in your 11th and 12th class, and or whatever is happening in the world. Second, even in the level of knowledge, it is not just the knowledge or the what they are looking at it. Why? What is important, but the why is more important, and that why is the conceptual understanding of any idea. If you are a science student, they'll ask you that. If you're a history student, they'll ask you about history. If you're a psychology student, they can ask you things on psychology, but they can ask you of your 11th and 12th class 11th and 12th class subjects. And then the third thing, which is very, very important, is the communication skills. Now, I'm not saying communication skills are everything. Communication doesn't mean that you need to be brilliant in English alone. What I meant by communication is that whatever you want to convey, can you convey the same in simple words? You don't have to use any big words, any outlandish words. You can use simple, sensible words. Then The other question they're going to ask you, like I said in the very beginning, is, hey boss, what is your career plan? Because if your career plan is clear, then they say that, okay, you are the right kind of a candidate to come in. Other questions like basic personality. Basic personality will include questions like, strengths and weaknesses or interests and hobbies. All those things can be asked on personality. Because the assessment will be on basic personality also. And last but not the least, reacting to a situation. Reacting to a situation. Like I said in the beginning, they can ask you questions which can provoke you. It's about how you kind of don't get provoked and respond to a question, not react, but respond to a question, which is going to be looked at very seriously. And the next thing is, let's look at the most common asked questions. You need to start working on them. You need to make notes of each of these things. One is, tell me about yourself. Then the second one is, you can just look at the other ones also straight away. The first one is, you need to prepare an answer for tell me about yourself. The second is personality related questions. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses, etc. kind of things. Third, career related questions. Why do you wish to do your BBA, MBA? What do you wish to achieve in 15 years? Such kind of questions. Why IPM? Why IIM Indore? Why IIM Rohtak? Why IIM Ranchi? Bodh Gaya? Whatever. Of course, Bodh Gaya and Jammu thankfully don't have an interview, but they will ask you why that institute and why not something else. Questions on hobbies, interests, and extracurricular activities can be asked, like positions of responsibility. Let's say you are a captain of your school, or your prefect of your school, captain of a house. They can ask you questions on that. And the last is general awareness questions. Like one of the things that are happening in the country right now, for example, Maharashtra, issues in Maharashtra, what is happening, Udaipur killing, constitution, that some Cherian, the MLA and the minister in Kerala, who has said something about the constitution, or the international situation like the UK situation, where Boris Johnson had to quit, or a Sri Lanka situation where the hundreds of people have stormed into the president's office and the president guy is absconding, or about others also. It could be the former Japanese prime minister's assassination, for example. Anything and everything under the sun, unfortunately, can be asked. Are you going to be ready for that? Now, how will you be ready for that is when you prepare for it. Now, here is my simple point of what you should do. These are the questions. For each of the questions, pick up a book, some kind of a book for yourself, and start writing down your answers. You don't have to write elaborate answers also, but at least start writing down points. And then when you have these points with you, you will be able to communicate better. There's one session that will take about how do you tell your story, but that is a separate session. But right now, what you need to know is that make sure that all these questions which can come in your interview, you are ready with it. One last thing which is also very, very important is your subject in your undergraduation. They can ask you questions in math. They can ask you a puzzle. You already done your IPMAT. You don't have to worry about it, but please be aware that these kind of questions can also come in, the subject questions as well as the mathematics questions. Now, what I'm going to take up is the most important question, and that is, tell me about yourself. Aditi. Can you go to the next slide, please? I think it is getting stuck. Yeah. So just go ahead with this. So tell me about yourself. When you talk about, it is you. It is about yourself. So what are the points that you need to have? Let's look at all the points one by one. The first thing is, where were you born? Parents, siblings. Second, okay, I think there is seriously a problem today in various things. Again, it's lost. No, it's okay. It's a commit, I think. Yeah, we'll just go it. Aditi, if you can just take you through the rest of it also, so that I can wrap it up. Yeah, thank you. So there are 6 points. There are 6 points that I want you to cover broadly when you talk about tell me about yourself. If you can see, it's almost everything about you as a person. First, your parents and siblings. What is their background? Because that also gives you some idea about who you are. The second, your antecedents, the place of birth, the upbringing. You have been for the last 16 years. What have you been? 16, what, 18 years? How have you grown? What are the issues that have you faced? All those things on, and place of birth. For example, depending on where you are from, the influence that you would have had would be different. For example, you're from a metro city versus a small town. Similarly, your schoolings, achievements in school, achievements on curricular and extracurricular activities, extracurricular activities including positions of responsibility. And then you talk about your interests and hobbies. What really interests you, what drives you as a person, and last but not the least, the strengths that you have. Mind you, clearly, you don't have to talk about weaknesses when you talk about yourself. You talk about the best foot forward. You don't talk about negative things when you go into a interview. It's almost like, see, when you go to a talk to a girl or a boy, depending on which gender you are in, and you want to impress the other person, you will never talk about your negative things. You will only talk about the positive things. And that's exactly what you need to do in an interview also. Now, when you write all these things, so the other thing that I'm going to tell you is, when you're preparing for tell me about yourself question, make a note of all these areas. Write four lines for each of these things. So 4 into 6, 24 lines you can write. You can write, I'm saying. It could be 20 lines, 20 lines, 25 lines, doesn't matter. After writing it, then think about, how do you present this? How do you may start with your strength, or you may start with your parents, or you start with your school, you may start with your positions of responsibility. You can start with anything that you want, provided there is a coherence and there is a continuity in everything that you do. Like, tell me about yourself, you will have to do this for every other thing. For strengths, for example, let's say there are 3 strengths that you have. How do you say they are your strengths? On what basis? Has to be some reason, right? So what are the reasons for that? Or can you give an example of how this strength has been utilized, useful to you? Similarly, if there's a weakness, if they ask you, hey, tell me, my friend, what are your weaknesses? Let's say there's a weakness that you have. You should say why this is a weakness, and how did it affect you negatively. So for every question that I have given in the previous slide on commonly asked questions, you need to make sure that there is an example for everything. Once that is done, I think you will be in a position. Then take up the mock interviews. We at Career Launcher will be conducting. There is a PDP program that we plan to give you. If you have not already joined for it, it's the best program that you can join, because this program will help you not only give you these kind of tips and tricks for how to attend a question or attempt a question. More importantly, give you the entire idea about how that 15-20 minutes will be. It's a kind of a real interview before the interview. I mean, a real mock interview before the interview kind of things. And we'll make sure that you are well prepared. The demeanor, the way you speak, even if there is kind of an inputs that need to be given, will be given on a very, very regular basis. So to do that, make sure that you join us. But before I go, let me take you through some of the very, very basic questions that everybody has. One is honesty in asking questions. Lots of people ask this question, sir, how honest I have to be? Boss, there is nothing like how honest. Either you are honest or dishonest. There is nothing like a 77% honesty or 82% honesty. It has to be 100% honest. That does not mean you will have to tell everything truth. What I'm saying is, whatever you're telling has to be absolutely the truth. Second, sometimes it happens that the interview gets over in 5-7 minutes, especially IIM Rohtak's interview. They only have 15% of the marks. Remember, 45% of the marks for the test, 15% marks for the interview, and 40% for 10th and 12th. That's what their structure of selection is. So they don't give so much of weightage to interview. So it could be 5-7 minutes. For somebody, it could be 30 minutes. Don't worry about the amount of time they give you for interview. That should be more than sufficient. Then the third one, if you do not know anything, answer to a question. What should you say? My answer is, my simple advice is, say, sir, I'm so sorry, I don't know, I don't remember it right now, and get out of that question. Don't keep don't keep thinking about it for too long. Reacting is a strict no. You need to respond. The interviewer can do whatever he wants. You have to respond properly. Then ethics. You have to be absolutely ethical. Don't think that the world is completely unethical. If the world was really, really unethical, all of us will not exist. Trust me on that. There are some unethical elements, but you are joining the most prestigious programs in the country. You can't be even remotely unethical. Last but not the least, at the end of the interview, my friends, please make sure that you smile. In fact, throughout the interview, don't be laughing at it, but make sure that you have a nice demeanor, a little bit of a smile, and at the end of it, thank the interviewers very politely. However bad your interview might have been, don't get flustered. Thank them, walk out of the room very, very confidently. And when you close the room, also close the door, also close it in a very nice manner rather than bang it saying that yaar kya bakwas question puche kind of things. Don't do that, is what I would say. Right? Okay. We'll go to the next one, Aditi. You have not added those things. I'm so sorry about it. But here is what I would say. Wish you all the very best for it. But Career Launcher has come out with a specific program for the interview preparation. We call it the PDP, the Personality Development Program. Make sure that you join that if you have already not. If you're already a full-time student, you will get this automatically, the 2 interviews. But if you're not a full-time student, please make sure that you join this. It will help you to crack these interviews. Second, if you are from a center, at various centers of the Career Launcher centers, go to the relevant center that you have joined in, talk to the director or to the faculty member there. They will take care of your preparation too, along with whatever we are doing online in that sense. But if you are not in a position where there is a Career Launcher center, we do this also in a online mode. And in online mode, probably the interview also will be online, but there'll be enough feedback given to you. With that, thank you so much. Let me see if there are a few questions that I can answer. Other than that, we can look at coming back with other more important sessions as we go along. The indoor cutoff has not come in. Lots of people are asking, what is the indoor cutoff? Indoor cutoff has not come in. The calls may come in this week. Worst case will be 15th of July. The window to revised marks and objections has not come out yet. Once that comes out, you will get 99.9% the result. That means the interview call by 15th. I am Rohtak, you already got. So please be prepared for it and wait for I am Ranchi also. But there is no point in waiting for whether the interview will come through or not. If you have more than 175, 180 marks, should start preparing very, very seriously for your interview. With that, thank you so much. Wish you all the very best.